To the January 9th, 2018 Finance Committee meeting. We have a pretty full agenda, but also, too, we've sort of greased the skids relative to at least the capital improvement plan by at least addressing some of the tall poles in the plan relative to some questions and answers. Before we start, though, we have two key people, actually three of us, on the Revenue and Fixed Cost Committee. But is there any current update? I saw something from you, Lynn Savage, relative to the insurance.
I'm waiting. We've sent out an email to the insurance companies. They are reviewing it all, and they said they'd get back to me sometime this week, which I had responded to
I had
Liz
sent an email.
and said that, as soon as I heard back from them with what they're projecting, because they're not going to give me definite numbers, they're just going to give me an estimate of a potential increase, that I'd get back to Liz and you to reschedule a meeting probably in the next week or so.
Okay.
To finish the shared costs.
Quick question, when do they get closer to being real numbers than projected? And have they historically stayed pretty close? June.
May, June.
May, June.
And do they usually stay pretty close to projected?
Pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah. The one that might change a little maybe is workers' comp, but I don't think we have any more really big claims that are going through there, so hopefully that'll stay pretty steady.
The audit did that,
No, the audit is scheduled for a couple weeks.
okay, so that final number depends on the audit that they do for the previous fiscal year.
Right.
I got that. Yep.
Yeah.
Very good.
So, yeah, but they've been pretty good on close estimates.
All right. Any other questions on that topic? Okay.
Is there any new revenue sources? I know we're waiting for finals, but there are no new revenue sources on that projection, correct?
Your revenue sources, we talked about this before, but there is additional revenue sources, increases in the estimates. Please join us.
Yes.
There are some differences of improvements and increases, but it's taking this conservative position that the town has always had, at least under Andrew Mailer's management, of what they're going to use for projections. An example that was given one time was the building permits, which you look and they've gone sky high as far as the fees and things from that, but that's not steady money.
Got it. It's not predictable
So
forward
you can't
revenue.
predict it, you
Nope.
can't use it, you can't
Okay.
go forward. One we did increase by, what, $50,000?
Yeah, we did.
That's inconsequential.
Yeah,
We're talking about
exactly.
millions of
We're
revenue,
talking a
new
big-
revenue
big
sources.
numbers,
But it's
yeah.
just basically
Sorry.
recognizing that reality.
Is reality.
Right.
It is
Yeah.
what it is. And
Okay.
as he said, the building is very difficult to pinpoint, because you can't predict what people are gonna do.
Yep.
But the motor vehicle excise was up by.
We did raise that.
Yeah,
absolutely.
300,000, that
Yep.
was,
Okay.
That was
yeah, and that was
significant.
based
That's
on
more
fiscal year
substantial.
16 and 17 actuals.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Was that one of the biggest, you would say, in terms of being up?
Yeah,
versus
I
a
think
new
so,
source?
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then didn't you have some reductions due to some of the high school debt dropping off that sort of
Yes,
skewed the
it-
numbers too? Because
did,
it,
but
okay.
it nets out. We did raise the new growth by 50,000, which
Okay.
is significant, because we've kept new growth at 600,000 for the last probably 6 years.
Okay.
So we did,
And the
work
debt
in the
fallout's not going to be replaced by new debt, right?
No.
This is all about the
Yeah.
ratings and refinancing
Exactly.
and keeping our debt lower than it
Yep,
was.
and we're
Okay.
keeping it with this program that we're putting forward this year.
Yeah.
We're within the range that we want to keep in, which is below 5%.
Right,
So,
okay.
yeah.
Thank you. Thanks.
Any other questions, comments? We'll give another briefing or update relative to this topic after we have our last meeting.
Yep.
Very good. On to the capital improvement plan. We have Ray Santilli and Lynn Savage here. Did I say your last name properly?
Yes.
Thank you. And here to provide you with the answers as well as maybe some follow-ups. We did send out to Andrew and team a list of series of questions that he did respond to us in writing, and we can address that, but I'm hoping that perhaps from that information you might also want to dig a little deeper into some of the topics. Who would like to start?
Thank you for having us.
Yes.
Are we allowed to start right into the questions? Is that,
If you want.
are you guys okay with that? You've
Sure.
seen,
Yep.
right? Okay,
Yeah, we've seen the questions.
okay.
We
Um,
participated in the answers too.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you too, by the way, for doing this so quickly. Okay, so here's my first question, and then I'll give somebody else some room and time. Again, I just want to state this so you can tell me if I'm incorrect or correct. So basically, when we went to town meeting last year, we approved the kindergarten center with estimates from an engineer and design firm.
Correct.
Correct. Then after the town meeting, of which it was approved, then we got an actual bid. But right before the bid, the state or some credible body came in and said there is going to be some adjustments due to regulations and changes. So the bid that came out was higher than
Right.
the engineer and designers expected. And we
That they
negotiated.
originally expected.
Yes, they were going into town
Right,
meeting.
the
Okay.
OPM and the architect basically, when they got to more final design,
Yes.
which was after town meeting,
Okay.
because we went out to bid, we ended up going out to bid in November 1st, I think, so over the interim months of May to August, we do a second estimate, and the second estimate, because it increased the per square foot cost.
Yeah.
Which then kind of skewed everything.
Okay, let me ask you, is it normal for us to do engineering design estimates, get them from experts, go to town meeting and approve, and then get bids?
Yes,
Okay.
You have to, because you can't get the bids unless you've got town meeting approval to do so.
That's a legal, like a statute or
Well,
something,
well,
our rules?
really
Or
not-
I get
it-
the
it-
making the effort. I
It's-
do
it's-
understand that.
It's a timing
They
issue.
don't want to bid if they don't
Right.
know it's.
Right,
gonna
it's a
be
timing
bid.
issue.
Right,
If you
might
don't,
not
if you don't have
Yeah.
approval, I mean,
Okay.
have we done bids? Have we issued bids like at the end of May, beginning
Sure.
of June? Sure, because now we know the town meeting has already approved a project.
Right, right.
And we try to hit the ground
But
running.
not before, okay. Okay, so then the second question with that is Atkinson roof cost. I get that there was money allocated,
Mm-hmm.
and that was pushed into covering the kindergarten center.
Correct.
But I didn't see another entry then in future years for Atkinson roof cost. Is there a reason?
Yes, the school department and the school committee had lengthy discussions on this. They had the roof reevaluated at Atkinson, et cetera, and they felt that the roof has held up better than they anticipated, so they can get a number of more years out of it. So they believe that they can roll anything that needs to be done to the roof into Facilities Master Plan 2.
Which we don't have as a line item,
Well,
correct, in the
we
SIP?
do. Again, let me jump ahead to one of your other questions.
Yes.
This is a 5-year CIP.
Yes.
Only covers to FY '23.
Yes.
Facilities Master Plan 2 goes through FY '26. So you're not going to see 24, 25, and 26 on this year plan.
Okay.
You will see them a year added on each succeeding year over the next 3 years.
Right,
So yes, Facilities Master Plan 2 stretches out to FY '26.
Right, and
So
some
you
of this
don't
may
see-
fall there.
Right,
Okay.
you don't see all of the projects.
okay.
Jennifer, do you know, you have fiscal year 18.
Yeah, I'm trying to do it at the same time. I'm not multitasking very well here.
So,
Sorry.
Yeah. No, no,
follow-up
thank you.
question to the
Yep.
Atkinson roof. What sort of facilities capital maintenance review do we have in play? That the prior year, there was an indicator that the Atkinson roof needed to be done, and now, a year today, we're saying it's no longer needed. So therefore, what other projects have we gone through that are capital, serious capital in nature? And they're not really on here. I know there's a lot of this stuff is new. The senior center is great.
Right.
But, so tell me, what, do you have that kind of process in place?
Yes, we do, because again, this is a 5-year CIP, so we try to anticipate. Similar to another question on police radios. We know what their lifespans are. So we try to anticipate, and what we've told our departments, and we have stressed to our department and division directors over the last 6, 7 years, is you can't just think of next year. You need to think of the next 5 years. So we try to, for lack of a better term, try to set in stone years 1, 2, and 3. With 4 and 5, a lot of things can happen. Another example of what can happen is another question that was posed, which is the $750,000 for improvements at the middle school kindergarten center site. So we try to project. Do our projections hit on all the time? No, of course they don't. There are some modifications. Sometimes things that are projected at $400,000 end up coming in lower, sometimes higher. We make those adjustments on the fly. We ended up doing that with one of the facilities master plan projects that I just can't think of off the top of my head right now that we had to make a change, similar to what the change that we had to make now with the kindergarten center. So 5 years ago, when the school department started putting in the Atkinson roof, they believed that sometime in FY19, they would need to replace that roof. Now that they've gotten closer, and what we also did 2 years ago is we hired a roofing company who does an assessment of all the municipal and school building roofs on a biannual, is that every 2 years? Biannual basis. And so when this was done last year, or in this past year, it was determined that, you know what, this is actually holding up much better than we anticipated it holding up 3 and 4 years ago. And then coincidentally, you know, if the increase had not come in the kindergarten center, might we have done the Atkinson roof? We probably would have put it off a year, and that's another thing we've done is flip-flopped
Yes.
specific projects from 1 year and moved it back a year and moved another project forward. Because again, our goal is to max out at that 5%. That is part of the financial goal of the town manager and the board of selectmen.
So the Atkinson roof can last another 5 years?
It will last another 3 to 4 years at least, yes.
And when we're talking roof, we're not talking about the inside of the gym that looks like it's
No.
peeling down lead?
No,
Correct.
this was strictly going to be the roof.
Okay. We good? Can I keep going? I'm sorry, I'm like multitasking.
Anyone want to go?
You're on a roll, go for it.
Well, I'm the one who came up with half the questions. So we've got the Atkinson roof, and then we talk about the senior center.
Yes.
And I'm a little bit confused on the rules in terms of the town approved a renovation, not a new build.
We approved, our original plan throughout this process since 2010
Yes.
has been to expand and renovate the present senior center building.
Okay.
That had always been our plan.
Okay,
In the past 3 to 4 months, we have been approached by a developer
yep,
about perhaps donating land to the town
yep,
to build a senior center. We have looked at the different alternatives, and as you're well aware, and one of the major complaints of the present senior center is there is no place to park, you know, especially on Tuesday afternoon bingo days. So we
So is this a
start-
proposal for town meeting to approve a new build?
Yes.
Thank you.
So
That's all
this
I wanted to know.
5.5 is the estimate for a new build.
Okay.
As
So that'll go
opposed
to
to-
town meeting and be presented, but two options won't be presented. Will
No.
two options be presented or
Nope,
just a new build?
Just a new build. We have decided that, you know, we need to finish discussions / negotiations with the builder, but we are 90+% confident that they will come to fruition. So we will go the manner of the new build. Now, in the 5% chance that it fails, we will go back to our original plan, and the 5.5 will have leftover money in it because it was only 4 point something to do the renovations and expansion. And it also, by this new plan, it alleviates us having to locate or perhaps take by eminent domain some properties or
land for more
whatever for
parking.
parking.
But somebody could make the argument at town meeting that that's a bigger expense
Yes.
to do a new build, and that money could be used elsewhere.
Yes,
Which could
and
then
then,
allow,
and then I would hope that they can get out of the building alive without the seniors attacking them.
I understand.
Him or her.
So, can you disclose where that,
No.
Okay, but you mentioned that you needed to negotiate with the builder. Is
Yes.
the donor of the land and the builder the same person?
Yes.
So this person would get a contract to,
No, they're not building. They're
they
just
wouldn't do the
donating-
building,
They're just
just the
donating
land. So they're
correct.
not,
They just happen to be a builder.
they
They
happen
just
to be a
happen to
builder.
be a builder,
Okay,
correct.
I just wanted
That's
to
correct. They
clarify
just
that.
happen
It was
to,
not
I should have used the word, did I use developer? I
No, you
did
said
use,
builder,
okay.
that's why I
Yeah,
just wanted to
yeah.
qualify that they weren't one.
This person happens to do both, but no, they will not be building.
Okay,
We still have to go through the process of Massachusetts public construction.
okay.
May I ask,
Yes, you may.
developer, is this a donation
Will
linked
require
in some
town
way
meeting vote.
to some project that is currently under consideration elsewhere in town?
Possibly.
Okay, so this was basically,
You okay there, Chuck? Come over, do the Heimlich on you?
so this is a pound of flesh that's coming out of that process, so to speak.
Not necessarily.
Well, okay. I mean,
But it's been stated.
okay, so, but it's like,
information be disclosed prior to town meeting.
It has to be, because if we're looking for town meeting to approve, the town meeting must approve the donation of the land, so obviously all the facts, well before May, when we,
So Ray, if the deal isn't consummated by then, does that mean that we're not going to be voting? Will we yank that out, or what's the
no,
fallback?
if for some strange reason we all of a sudden lose the confidence that it will happen, we will adjust that number to go back to the renovation expansion of the present facility.
Okay.
I mean,
So there'd be a
for
modification.
don't want to say this for whoever's listening, but it's a fallback plan.
Yep.
That is always there, that we'd rather stay with what we've now designed.
okay, thank you.
That's good. Tell us something about the $750,000 CapEx for the
Sure.
pedestrian vehicle.
The kindergarten project itself includes about $85,000 worth of site work. One of the things that we've prided ourselves in, and for those of you who were around back in the old center renovation project, we try to combine things so that we're not recreating the wheel as soon as we finish a project. So if you think back to the old center project, the reason that took about 4.5 years and people thought we were just delaying or whatever is because we did a gas line project, we did a sewer project, we did a drainage project, we did a roadway project, and we did the underground utility project, all wrapped up into one. So this is a similar circumstance where we have the kindergarten project with a limited site work. We are then going to have, and I've heard it called several things. I call it the middle school athletic recreational complex rehab renovation. That will be hopefully primarily CPA funded, and it will handle a lot of the interior parking configurations. It will take care of the middle school. It will take care of the Atkinson School. It will take care of the ECC, and it will take care of the kindergarten center, the parking, the major parking areas. Very important to have drop-off and pick-up for buses that will not affect the children coming from cars and being dropped off by their parents, etc. So as we were looking at this, we started talking about, we also, because now that site could be a major site, well, it is anticipated to be a major site in North Andover, is we can't have the traffic coming around the middle school and just exiting onto Chickering Road. So this 750 is intended, we are currently proposing plans and working with the Mass DOT because, as you well know, 125 Chickering Road is a mass roadway, so everything has to be processed by the state, and that we will end up putting, widening the road. As part of the kindergarten project, we will be moving the current exit road more towards the middle school, and that will be a temporary solution while the construction's ongoing. But the long-term solution is to make that a 3-lane in and out with a traffic light on Chickering Road. Because we want to have the middle school kind of isolated to its own self, in and out. We're going to have the Atkinson isolated in and of itself, and then we need to concentrate on the middle school. I mean, on the kindergarten center, the ECC, and the complex itself, while also being allowed to using that what is planned in the property itself is a single lane coming for buses to exit from the middle school. So they're not all going onto Main Street and then having to take rights and lefts, and if you've ever been past the middle school, you know that becomes a parking lot in and of itself on Main Street, and you can't get past.
Respectfully, I think the question is, why wasn't this thought before last town meeting or estimated? And then I get that there's a discussion about CPA funds for
Mm-hmm.
part of it, but there is definitely an additional cost hitting the line.
Right, because
So
what
talk
we're,
to us about the
what
timing.
we're talking about, the egress and in and out off of Chickering Road
Yep.
cannot be funded by CPA funds. And
Right, but how did we not address this last year when we knew we were
because
aiming
we were
for the kindergarten?
because we were
funds?
doing it in bits and pieces, and if it was simply the kindergarten project, we wouldn't need to do this more elaborate in and out off of Chickering Road.
But you
Okay.
want it- Okay, because I've heard some residents say we would need that. So this was
We
not
would have
because of that.
we would have
it's-
needed a more modified, but we wouldn't have needed something to the extent where one of the things that we don't know yet, but that Mass DOT may impose that we need to make. I'm not going to have the direction right, but coming on Chickering from Mass Ave towards Main Street,
Yes.
whether there needs to be a left turn lane,
Okay.
whether there needs to be certain
Due
restrictions.
to just the kindergarten build
Correct.
or
So
traffic.
as we started talking to Mass DOT and this started becoming more
Just
of a project than
after
anticipated.
town meeting, because we just approved it at town meeting. It's
Correct.
the same process. That
Right.
again, until it's approved, we don't.
Right.
Okay.
So we could have done this half-cock over the next 2 to 3 years.
No, I
And
understand
it-
why.
and and we would have gotten more criticism for not doing it right the first time
I know.
and constantly having to refund things. So that's why the 750 all of a sudden appeared. It's one of the few times that you have seen something, it's probably the only time you've seen something appear in year one of a 5-year CIP that has not appeared anywhere previously on a CIP. I don't think we've ever done that before. You may have seen something in year 3. I don't even think you've seen something in year 2, but it's a pretty dramatic project to be done, and that's why we have truly made an exception to present it in this way.
It's out of the norm that we would have placed it in like this, but we need to.
I didn't mean to cut you off. That was the intent of the question.
Not a problem.
Okay.
I was trying to do, I do background first,
Mm-hmm.
get things sort of flowing. Carrie?
I do have a question. Is it
You
time
may
for
have
my
a question.
question? Okay. On page 7,
Page 7
page
of the book.
of the book, it's titled General Fund Non-Excluded Debt as a Percent of Net Revenue.
Yep.
It's a chart.
I'll get to it eventually.
Okay.
It's such a large PDF that
It lags when you try.
just
And
go
it's-
ahead and keep talking about it.
Okay, so it's got some colors on it, I think,
Yes,
which are
it's a graph.
important. Here. As I read this, I would like an explanation to see whether I am reading this correctly, or even partly correctly. If we do everything that we would like to do,
Yep.
everything that we have set aside, said to ourselves we're going to do the school, we are going to do the senior center, we are going to keep our facilities repaired.
Master Plan 2. And,
Master
right.
Plan 2.
Mhm.
So baked into this, all of those things are baked into this chart.
Absolutely.
And if we, the yellow dots, which are at the top of the blue columns there, represent where we are pretty much today.
Yes.
And that's where our, the ratio is 4.5%. So the non-excluded debt as a percent of revenue is currently 4.5%. When we start adding other things to it, like the purple block,
Yep.
for FY20, which I think has got, if we look back at our 5-year plan, there's a project that starts in there.
Right, the debt payments start.
The debt payments
Right.
start.
So the way we do the borrowing is, whatever we vote at town meeting doesn't get borrowed till the following year. So the principal and interest payments don't hit until the following fiscal year.
Okay, so
Yep.
now we're going to see the impact of whatever it is that we decide in fiscal 19. The effect of the borrowing then
Goes into 20.
goes into 20.
Yes,
And then that same borrowing carries on through
correct.
the next few years. And then there we are in FY '20, and then we've got this white extension at the top,
Yep.
which is the non-excluded debt for FY '21, which is yet another project, more debt caused by the prior year. So what I
So-
should be flipping back and forth to the other page.
Right, if you look at page 3.
Yes.
It shows you the net debt ratio percentages at the bottom of the page. And if you, in the middle of the page is the yellow, well, it's blue, yeah, the yellow highlight. That's the additional debt that we're adding onto. But you gotta understand that in 2020, it also includes whatever project and then any new projects, which brings it up to 1.3 million.
Okay,
And then
but
1.3 million, we add another 400,000, and then the next year we add on to the 1.7.
And so all of these projects which are causing this borrowing are laid out in the CIP.
That's correct.
So there is, so as a net result, by the time that we get to FY '23,
Yep.
that percentage will have gone from 4.5% to 6 or perhaps 7%.
4.7. It's 4.7.
But
So,
how do you read the chart is
How
what
do you
really
read
comes
the
down to.
chart?
That's just the
Yeah.
right, it,
The chart looks like,
because you have debt that falls off and then you have debt that adds, so the net ratio of it all keeps the percentage below the 5%.
it keeps the percentage below
Right.
the 5%,
Right.
but this chart makes it appear
Like it's, right.
Roll north is 6%.
that it's north.
There's no percentages
It's
on
just
the left
millions.
side, it's just showing that you're at, right.
Dollar.
So if you look at this chart and you see the blue line,
Mhm.
that is the increase of net debt service over the prior year. So it's, as you can see, as we're growing, like 2019, it's only an increase of 40,000, because you have debt that fell off and then you're
Right,
adding
and
debt.
debt add,
Then
but that's
2020,
cheaper.
it's 459.
So we're triple.
And then
Double.
2021, it actually is only 164,000, because you had so much that fell off and then you're adding. So
It's a moving target.
yes.
And with things
yes.
falling off
And that's
and
why
adding.
we do this 5-year plan, and we incorporate all the debt, and then we do the estimates of what the new projects are gonna cost for debt. So, and again,
So the
we're pretty conservative too, because the debt schedules that we do create for these are at a pretty high interest rate, which is not what we're paying right now, so.
Right, it's lower because of our higher
Exactly, because
rating.
our bond rating, right.
What is that? Oh, yes, the other rating.
The one we
So I
got.
do.
Yeah.
There should be a footnote on that chart.
There should be
Right.
a footnote on the chart.
Right, so
I
we
do
probably
echo
need
what
to
Karen
change
suggested,
the-
because it implies that you're gonna be
Right,
outside, well
Exactly.
outside the boundaries.
yep, so I can work on fixing that,
That's good, Karen.
yep.
Yeah, because most people are visual based. So the
Yes.
one thing that's missing there is the overall debt ratio. You're
Right.
absolutely right. And
Right, so it is deceiving, looking at
Well,
this,
it's just,
yeah,
we're visually based.
I
Right.
had the same problem, so I assumed actually these blue bars should actually get smaller over time, because
right.
from current debt, it's
Rolls off.
so
Right,
actually,
because it rolls off.
because your numbers show a more or less flat number, plus minus 5 million.
Correct,
The next 2 years a little bit below 5, and then around 5 million, so so I didn't understand why these bars are actually going up.
yep, no, I get it, and, yeah, I never really.
But just in the same, so the one thing, we have a fairly high amount of non or excluded debt, or debt exclusion in 2019 and 20, almost 2 million, or
Where are you
1.8, 1.9 million, debt exclusions. So I'm going back to the page 3.
Yeah,
So we had the debt exclusion in 17 and 18 of 1.78, and that drops down then in 19
Where are you
Yeah,
looking?
you need to, Tomas, you need to point us in the right place.
So, page 3,
Yep,
Yeah.
then right in the middle, there's total debt service.
yep.
And then
it's
just
less debt
below is
exclusion.
less
Yeah.
debt exclusion.
Yep,
Yeah.
The first in 17 is 1.8
Oh, okay.
million.
oh, I can see what you're
Yeah.
talking about, okay, yep.
And then it drops down to 6 and goes, and
Yeah,
is,
100,000.
That's because-
is smaller and smaller over
Because the
time.
excluded debt is being paid off, and it's falling off.
So, and you're not,
Dramatically.
and you're not saying
Dramatically.
there's,
And it won't pick back up unless we decide to have an override and have
Okay, all right,
another
all right, no,
excluded
it's
debt,
good.
which we don't plan to my knowledge.
Like things like the high school?
it's
or-
not,
Right.
it's not good?
Right.
So what,
No, it's not good that
No, it
that
is-
we don't intend to have a debt
right,
Yeah, so-
Might
yeah.
something happen in the future? You've heard, the school department talk in open session about filing a proposal with the MSBA regarding the middle school or whatever. If that comes to fruition, whether it's this year, next year, or 6 and 7 years down the line, then that will, you're talking about a $35 million project that's not going to be done within the CIP. That will require a debt exclusion. But until something like that happens, there are no plans.
So, is this
So
still the
Tom,
high
is it-
school from way back?
Yep.
Yes.
right.
Yep.
A portion of this is for the high school, and then in FY nineteen,
Yep.
the
Yep.
last payment for the Thompson Elementary will be paid off. And then, as you can see, if you look into the 2021, it's only the high school that's left, and then the high school will finally be paid off in 26. 26?
26?
Yeah, 2026,
Yep.
yep.
You guys gonna have
And
like a
it
mortgage
actually drops
burning
each
party?
year between
You can
19
invite me back, Forrest.
to 22, it drops 51K, and then it keeps gradually dropping. In the last payment in 2026 is only 137,000, so.
Cool.
Yep.
Another question, more from a high level. So when we go back on page 2, where all the CIP projects by year, the last, facility master plan is in 2019, and then our plan drops to like 3 million, 2 million capital investment in 2020, 21, 23, and then it picks up again.
Right.
So we almost like have a holiday from our master plan, which I understand and it might change, but right now, my question is really more, and I see a lot of little things going into 2021. We're buying, an engine truck, radios. Are these now fillers because they were or catch up because we haven't really done it? We spent so
No,
much money on the other stuff.
No, we've made it a point not to have to do catch-up. It's part of our overall philosophy to do what needs to be done. That's part of what Facilities Master Plan 1 was. It's what part of Facilities Master Plan 2. It's always been the philosophy in the last 10 to 12 years with the replacement of fire trucks. You end up spending more money when you try to do catch-up. So the radios, the fire apparatus, the facilities, what will turn out to be Facilities Master Plan 2 are all, it's a game plan. It's not meant to say, well, you know what, we're taking a hiatus from a Facility Master Plan, so let's dump a few projects in there so that, because we haven't done them, no.
It looks
It's
a
not
little
that
bit, because we have a lot of one-offs
Yeah.
in 2020, 21, which I don't see in
And I'm
other
gonna tell you,
years.
it just happened that way, okay?
it's a coincidence.
And to answer a question that's in the future, it's the same reason why we don't have both the police and the fire radios in the same year. They were both, right, they were both purchased 2 to 3 years apart. They have different useful lifespans, so there's no need to either delay, I think it's the police ones are first, either delay the police ones 2 years to buy them with the fire, or say to the fire, hey, you know what, we're gonna give you brand new radios 2 years before they're ready to be replaced. It's all part of the overall game plan.
So let's stick with that topic. And
Yep.
You see that the bonds associated with the fire department radios expire in 2 years, and so your timing on the useful life is perfect. The question that was raised relative to that had nothing really much to do with the useful life
That's
or
to do with
timing.
economies
It
of
had to
scale.
do with the communications that hopefully with the brand-new radios that we've made obsolete the communications, and I'm saying this in an extreme, with the fire department. And to your point before, why would I do something that's stupid when I can do something now at the $750,000 project? So the comment that came back was, I don't know if that was really responded or not. I mean, do the communications, the new radios and the fire department radios, which will be around for 2 more years, will they be in sync?
Yes, the guts is not changing. The guts of the system is not changing. The radio, the communication center, the police department is not changing. The frequencies aren't changing or whatever. You're just, I'm trying to find an example in my head that it would equate. You have a 2004 truck, and now you're buying a 2000, and it's still a truck that works and whatever. You don't have to change using the gas, or I don't know. If
I
that's
sort
a
of
good-
get it, but that's probably
not
not the best
good.
analogy. But the analogy I'd rather use is my wife got me an iPad 1. I had it until it was no longer compatible with anything else we had. So I didn't have the latest generation iPad. So that's more of that's the technology question, not so much a car or a
Yeah,
truck
well, the radios will, I mean, again, we're not replacing our radio system, we're just replacing our radios. So the
hardware.
system, right, so the system is still in effect.
question. Okay.
They don't obsolesce, I don't think, as fast as like
No,
an iPad.
no,
They're
no.
very,
a
it's
sys-
old
a s-
technology.
a
Radio is old
A
technology.
system lasts 15 to 25 years,
Yeah.
depending on what system you
A
buy.
lot of this, the baseline assumptions for this is probably driven off the depreciation schedule for the accounting. I mean,
No.
a Motorola radio is a known commodity for 50 years. The accounting for that should be scheduled pretty standard, right?
I don't think we get that sophisticated. It's basically the lifespan of the radio, which is typically about 7 years.
Could I ask this question about those radios? Are we talking
Anytime you
about,
want.
is this a battery problem?
No,
No?
no. Its usefulness runs out. It's not a battery problem. We actually probably replace the batteries every 2 years.
They are replaceable.
Oh yeah, they're replaceable
Good
batteries.
to know.
We
Okay.
actually,
Well-
they're rechargeable, but we actually probably replace the batteries on every radio every 2 years. We buy batteries, but it's in the operating budget. You don't see it as a CIP request.
Are you saying that the parts wear out?
Batteries wear out, sure.
No. These radios,
Yeah.
before their useful life.
Well, I
They-
mean,
they
think
wear
about
out?
them. They have moving parts.
Yeah,
Well,
I mean, you
they're
have
u-
to click on them.
The
you
police,
have
the
to-
police are driving around with them, dropping them.
Right, we
Yeah,
also,
they
we
get-
all, we also
yeah.
have a maintenance plan on these radios. I mean, probably beyond 6 to 8 months, radios go in for service all the time. Again, they're used 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you know?
So there is a service contract associated with these too?
Yes, we have a service contract to repair radios, to maintain them, sure.
Is that something that goes out to bid?
It's usually on a state contract.
Because Motorola's on state.
Right, we piggyback state contracts, same as buying this stuff, same as buying the batteries. We just piggyback existing state contracts.
They're just really expensive.
Oh,
They are.
definitely. And they've changed dramatically over the years, trust me.
Thank you.
I have more questions. Go for it. If I may. So, the interest rate for the 5, 10, 20, it starts at 4%, goes to 4. So is that
That-
what you see currently, or is it
No,
still?
like I had said, we are very conservative, and we always are using a higher interest rate just in case, because you can't predict. You don't
Yeah.
know what, from a year from now, actually a year and a half from now, what the interest rate's gonna be,
So-
so,
Oh, excuse me, Thomas, what page are you on?
Page 4.
Thank you.
yep.
And so where are we right now with the 5-year, 10,
About 3,
3?
yeah, 2 3/4,
And
3.
it's always a step of a quarter percentage point. From
Usually.
5 to 10, it's a quarter, and then it's 3/4.
In our projections, yes. Yeah, yeah.
So is that also currently?
The way it works with our borrowing.
No. So when I look at the 20-year, so where are we right now at the 20-year roughly?
For the
Interest.
current borrowing for
Yeah.
our interest it's like 3 1/4.
3 1/4.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So, it's a little thing on the same page.
Page 4.
Page 4 for
Okay.
2021, you move 50,000 in a 20-year. I mean, is that just a planning thing? You
It's
say you.
because that's probably a design cost for a future project, and if the design costs for any project can be borrowed for the length of the project, but so we project it, because it's gonna be incorporated into like a $2 to $3 million project.
Okay.
That 50,000 is the start of facilities master plan too.
Right.
Also, you roll that already in the
Yeah.
20 years and the 200,000. It just seemed a little bit
It-
odd
it
that
is.
there's,
Because it's such a small amount compared to
Right.
the other
yeah,
amounts.
probably the
correct.
cost is
Yes.
higher. To,
Yeah.
Yep, yep.
Yep.
all right, so I understand. So that's just and you know, I should have asked that actually 3 years ago, but
Better late than never.
going back to the criterias, you know, where we have the A, B, C, D, E, F, how we
Yeah.
rate these projects.
Yep.
And maybe I asked it, or maybe I saw it and then just forgot. Did we come up with that ranking, or is this a town-wide, you know, established way how you rank projects? You know, the description, how the criteria A is this used commonly within
I think
towns?
you asked the same thing. It's our system that we use town-wide.
So
It's
we
not,
came
it's
up.
not a multiple community
No.
effort.
So we came
It's
up
us.
with that.
Yeah,
Yes, we developed it 15 years ago.
at least, when we started the 5-year forecast.
Yeah.
Budgeting forecast. Yep.
And it's still a good rating system. I don't know, after 15
Overall-
years,
overall,
things are
it's-
changing.
I mean, Lynn and I have talked of trying to tweak some things, you know, because but overall, yeah, it allows us to compare sometimes apples and oranges, because, you know, we've always tried to pride ourselves in not putting departments competing with each other, you know, to say, well, my project's better than his project, you know, or you know, this project should be, you know, so they don't do any of this, we do this.
Right.
You're trying to quantify
Right.
something.
Yeah,
Get
well-
into a really sort of
Yeah.
qualitative
Yeah, and-
nastiness
and
that.
it-
Yes, exactly.
and
It
when-
standardizes
right.
everything.
Right.
And there's no
Right.
question as to how we came up with it, because it follows this certain criteria. Yep.
And related to that, so we only rate the following year
The
Yes.
projects.
The year, right.
year
the-
that we're going to town meeting
But
for.
yet we put more into the over 5-year capital plan. You know, so overall we have a $30 million over 5 years, but only the first 8 million are rated.
Correct.
The other 22 million are not rated. So how do they make it on that list?
They're not formally rated. They're internally rated by what we call our budget team, which is Andrew, me, and Lynn. You know, we sit down and we call in, you know, the fire chiefs, the police chiefs, the school department, and we talk about the projects that they have proposed. Not all the projects that get proposed do you see on this list. For instance, some of the projects that get eliminated are the ones that, as Andrew explained in his cover letter, the under $50,000 that we have been moving to operating budgets, having them be part of their internal growth, that they need to start thinking about that and not flipping things to CIP just because it meets the $25,000 threshold. There are other, you know, every year someone will try to insert something into year 2 or 3 because all of a sudden it came out of the woodwork, and guess what, it didn't. You know, so you don't see everything that gets submitted. We already do an internal review and discussion with our division directors, the 3 of us.
And we,
And,
right. We read out the ones that
Yeah.
don't meet the criteria
Yeah.
that we set forth for this
I mean,
5-year plan.
what's the, I mean, like you said, what is it, $8 million in this year? We're not gonna show you that, you know, or, let me pick a different year, I'm sorry. So in year 3, or year 4, if it's $6 million, the fact that we may have gone $8 or $9 million of requests, we've already determined that several of those projects do not even meet, are qualified to be put into CIP.
Thomas, can I ask a follow-up question?
Yeah.
That might get to the heart of this. How do you prioritize between the schools, the senior center, the town municipal buildings, and so forth? Is that built into this criteria and
Yes.
scales process?
Yes.
Can I flip through it and you can explain? Because I don't follow this as well
I
as
need,
Thomas
I
does.
need, I would need to have the scoring on each one, because actually I'm the one who does the scoring system. Lynn and
Yes.
Andrew kind of stay out of it so that it's consistent with the way so I have in my head, you know, specifics. Like, for instance, the last criteria is the priority level, okay?
Like, keep going, yeah,
So if you have only one project,
yes.
and it's obviously priority one, is it 5 points you get? I guess.
Yeah,
So
I-
you get
this
5
is,
points.
okay.
If you have 3 projects.
Yes.
And you've labeled them priority 1, 2, and 3.
Yes.
Well, what you've labeled priority 1 gets 5 points, what you've labeled priority 2 gets 4 points, and what you've labeled priority 3, that's the simplest one.
Okay,
Obviously, some of the others are just as simple, if it's not part of a master plan.
yes.
If something hasn't been, a previous phase hasn't been funded, well, that's a 0. You know, so a lot of them are, some of them are slightly subjective, but most of them are black and white.
Through all of these different criteria.
That's correct.
Okay.
And it's built right into the program where
The software program?
the
Is that what you're
software
saying?
program, he
Yes.
keys all of the numbers in, and then
Yes,
it
it does
spits
all
out
of
that
this.
report that you see on page,
Yeah, this one right here, 12, right?
Yes.
yes.
Okay.
And that's the report. I actually
With
dump
the
it in.
multiplier effect.
I dump it into Excel so that it shrinks it down, because
Cliff
otherwise,
notes, it would be
yeah,
massive.
yeah, you would never.
Yeah.
Do you track the projects that were submitted, but as you said, didn't qualify? And what is that ratio?
It-
You 6,
it-
you received 12, and you did half?
It all depends year to year and
Depends
department to
year to
department. We may say, like I said, we may say to a department, you know, you've, I'm trying to think of something. The fire department, a couple of years ago, SCBA, self-containing breathing apparatus equipment. So what we did.
Scuba?
Yeah, scuba,
Yeah,
you got
well,
it. Yeah.
SCBA is really, yeah, but I don't wanna, so what they were told is, no, you'll do this over a 3-year period in your operating budget. You know, that kind of decision. We may, I think last year or the year before, on the fire truck or on an ambulance, we said, you know, this is really not part of the 5-year plan, but it really is year 6 or 7, so we expect to see it in the next submission for year 5, that kind of stuff. So we don't just dismiss and forget about it,
Comes back
because
up
there is
somewhere else.
some
Right.
merit to it on occasion.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
To get
And there's
that.
really not a whole lot that, I mean, the departments are really good on following the 5-year plan. We have a few that come in with, I would say we probably pulled out maybe a handful this year. And we've
And
redistributed.
occasionally you
either
get a
in
new division director, a new chief or whatever,
Right.
who has come into the position with a different set of priorities and game plan.
Right, which we did few years
Yeah.
ago.
Chair recognizes Karen.
I have, on page 13,
13.
this is the facilities master plan implementation, the senior center.
Yep.
There is a line that says, there's $1 million, it says the funding, general fund, 4,000,009, et cetera, under that, $1 million.
Free
From
cash.
$1 million
From free
is
cash.
free cash.
Right.
Yes.
So, is free cash done
Yes.
with this?
For the fiscal year, yes,
it
it
worth
was
it
done.
What do you mean by done? Do you mean is it all gone, or done as in
Yeah.
computed?
It's calculated, it's not
okay.
gone, no,
No, no,
no.
Okay,
Oh, no.
I
Oh, no.
mean, what's left?
Close to 10 million,
Yeah,
Okay.
okay.
as opposed to the days when we were
Yeah,
in the
no,
red.
and that is after the 4 million is removed from it, so we have 10 million, yes.
You have 10 million, and so you've decided to use 1.
Yep,
And don't forget, in this fiscal year, we're using 4 for the
Right.
kindergarten center.
Yeah, the
Right.
kindergarten center. So,
right, so
But that 10 is net of the 4.
I believe it,
I think it is,
I
yes.
believe it is.
Yes.
10 is net. Okay.
Well,
All right.
Yeah.
It's close to 10, it's 9 something, yeah. I don't have it here with me, but yes.
All right.
we are-
So that's all we have to use to produce this progression.
In the capital, that's all, yes, that's all we're proposing to use for capital, yep. Yep,
Nice.
For this particular item.
right, yep.
Oh, I have more
We're
than
here
you
for-
have,
we are
so
we're
you
here
keep
for you.
going.
Conservative.
Listen, if I get out of here anytime before 10:55, I'll be happy.
Was it 10:55?
Last night's.
Last night's selectmen's meeting.
Ended at
Oh,
8:55.
But I got home in time to see the last 7 minutes of the football game.
Ooh,
It's the last 7 minutes I didn't want to see.
they played already in Europe, so.
Oh, you just had to rub that.
Yeah, what's your point?
So,
I
I'm not rushing home for football games.
I
But-
watch, I
Me either,
follow, I
Tom.
follow those too.
So your funding or investment strategy for the water and the sewer enterprises. I understand, and I think you said that the policy, and I don't know whether it was driven by Andrew, that you pay the investment out of retained earnings, and I think you do this mostly except of 1 year, where you have a fairly high investment in one year. But so why are we doing that? I mean, there are still these investments. These are projects with a lifespan of 10, 15, 20 years. And yet you're just paying it out of that year's cash, basically, and pay for it. So you're not rolling it into a longer-term debt.
Correct.
And mirroring basically the lifetime of that asset.
Yep.
So
Yeah,
why just
Because if we have the cash to pay for the projects that are ongoing, then we should pay with cash rather than borrowing and create additional costs. Why would we want to use more money to pay the interest on borrowing when we have the cash available? We have
that bears the
not,
question, why do we have so much cash?
well,
Are our rates fairly high so we can afford that, or is that?
we
a
haven't
discussion
raised rates.
6
I
years
know.
we haven't
6
raised
years.
rates,
I know.
so
And
I
maybe
can't,
there's
you can't
still-
say that they're
there's-
high anymore like you
No.
used to be able to.
Well,
Because we
they're
used
high
to
enough
flex-
to pay all the investments in the
And-
year they occur, and which is a rare thing, and I don't think
It's-
many
Right.
enterprises can actually do
It's a
that.
decision that was made a number of years ago. For those of you who have been around a while, like me, the rates used to seesaw back and up and down, okay? And people used to get angrier, you know, so if the rate was X this year and it was a good year, it would be X minus something next year. And then because you didn't meet your projections, now it became X plus. So it kept fluctuating constantly. So a decision was made that, you know, when we have a good year, leave the rates alone. The policy that came into effect for both water and sewer was a certain percentage of retained earnings that would cover 4 months. 4 months of operating expenses would be what was minimally acceptable. And it's now worked great for 6 years. People would rather see stability in their water and sewer bills than have it go up and down each year and have them be totally unpredictable. You know, you have a good year, they go down. You have a bad year, now they skyrocket or whatever. So it's proven to be a good long-term policy. Retained earnings have cooperated, and we're able to, as Lynn said, use cash rather than have to borrow money and then pay it back with the interest.
Beyond the stabilization factor, though, there's a point where it's not the town's job to accumulate millions of dollars.
Oh, no,
And it
we,
becomes an inefficient.
that's correct.
You know,
That is correct.
And so, I guess the question is, what is that level?
What's the
If
number?
10 million, if we're using 1 out of 10 to, you know, this year, if we had 20, would we use 2?
Yeah, see, our retained earnings isn't that high. but
Yeah, we're at about a 4 to 6 month,
Right.
somewhere, 4 is the floor.
Right.
But we're always somewhere between 4 and 6 months of operating expenses in our retained earnings.
What is-
So, and that also means that if all of a sudden something dramatically happened, especially with a water and sewer system, we're able to,
Fix the
it
emergency.
hasn't happened yet, but we're able to address the emergency without all of a sudden going, now what do we do?
Where do we get the money? We gotta raise rates, or we gotta do something to get the money to cover it.
There's two separate, there's lots of pools of money. The 10 million is associated with the non-enterprise funds.
Right.
That's just the
And
free
then-
cash.
and
Is that what
they've
you're
been talking
referring
about
to?
is the retained
Yeah.
earnings, which is,
Lee Thomas's question was, is that?
Why build it?
Is that bloated, or, you know, what is that level?
That was
What's
really
the
not my
appropriate-
intention. The intention is, why don't we mirror, you know, the life of an asset, you know, with the borrowing? Because why do I pay for a benefit which somebody in 20 years still, you know, enjoys, but I paid with my rates today? And I think this is kind of the philosophy
it's-
with the borrowing, you spread it out over the years because you have a benefit over 20 years to enjoy it.
But one of the cherries on top is that that's one of the things that contributed to us getting the bond rating that we have.
The other angle here is, as well as on page 81 for the sewer debt, we're looking at 25% of the operating budget is used for debt service. And
Yeah, I know it was a lot higher.
It was.
60, 70,
Right.
maybe even higher percent. And I know that was one of the, we always talked about it, but I always question it why we really have to pay out of current cash flow for a long-term asset.
Right.
But again, it's a chicken and egg question. By doing it this way and establishing these long-term policies, it's allowed us to have our bond rating improved to the highest it's ever been, thus saving us money in a different way. If we took that kind of position, it would even be costing us more because now our bond rating isn't going to be elevated, so our interest rate is going to be higher.
Which is then gonna
Yeah.
cause the water and sewer rates to go back up because we gotta cover the cost to pay for the debt that is increasing. So this has allowed us to level it and keep it at a set rate for 6 years in a row, which is
It's been a long-term
historical.
approach that's
It has
worked.
never been that way here.
Well, is working to date.
Right.
But my final thought on that is, you have a great point about funding short-term liabilities, or funding short-term needs with long-term liabilities. And the only reason that makes sense here is because the interest rate is so low.
Right.
If the interest rate were 3 times as high, you wouldn't do that.
No,
Right.
at all.
So it's totally driven by the fiscal environment.
Right.
Liz?
I just had a quick question on, I don't mean to bounce around. I know we're on enterprise, but I had a quick question about in the summary, it mentions
What
that.
on which page?
Well, in the summary, it
page
doesn't
of
have
the
a
letter?
page. It's in the letter. On the last page of the letter, we talk about, there's a statement about paying for the carport and the storage building at the police department with capital stabilization funds. But then when I look at that on page 20, it looks like it's coming out of the general fund, and I'm wondering why that was mentioned so specifically as coming out of capital stabilization, and how would you make the decision to take it out of stabilization versus, for example, the senior center is the
Okay.
million is coming out of free cash, so.
So that would be, okay, so the departments enter the capital projects, and they are assuming that it's gonna be out of the general fund. The letter is written by Andrew with his assumption of where the carports potentially will be funded in the future, because it's a future project, correct?
Okay. Next year,
20.
20,
Right.
yeah,
Right.
2 years.
So-
It's the same,
Yeah.
it's the same approach that was taken when we replaced the turf at the high school, the turf fields. That came out of the stabilization fund that was funded over a 5-year period?
Right.
A
So if you look-
5-year period.
right, If you look on page 1, you can see on the chart, the listings down below for funding sources. It is in there, because this is the town manager's recommendation, is
Here.
to pay for those.
Okay.
If you look down the bottom, the other funding sources, capital stabilization, you see the
420.
negative 420.
Yeah,
So that's pulling it from there, which is offsetting the 420 up under the
The general fund.
carports.
Okay.
Okay, so
Okay.
it's not up to the departments to determine
Got it.
where the funding comes from. So it's the recommendation from the town manager.
They don't really care where the funding comes from.
they don't care.
as long
So
as-
for some reason,
Right.
Andrew feels that should come out of
Right.
this fund.
Yes.
It's-
And the reason why you see it on the capital detail for the facilities master is because that's done by the town manager's office.
Gotcha, okay.
Why
Okay.
are we taking that out of the stabilization fund?
Yeah, I
Isn't
just-
that, like, doesn't seem like an extreme?
Yeah, it
need?
didn't
I'm
seem like
sorry.
an extreme need. That was,
No, it's not,
like my-
the stabilization fund the capital stabilization fund is not for an extreme need, it's for a planned need. And again, that was the decision that was made when it was established that when we get to the replacement of the turf fields, that was not an extreme need. It was, it was an identified need.
Right.
yeah.
And it was funded over 4 years,
4
5 years?
I guess I have this
And actually, the
connotation that the word stabilization is for.
No,
needs
what it
that we're
is.
For-
surprised
It's like your,
about
it's
or-
like your
No, no,
savings
it's
account
not.
that you hold for an
that you really shouldn't
emergency,
touch.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really not though,
It's
because
not.
it has a ceiling. So
Right.
it's probably that it's getting up near its
Right.
ceiling.
Ceiling, and
So it's
that's
time
okay
to
to take it
drop
So
it
we
down.
use it
do have
as-
variance
We're not,
rules.
like Chuck just said, we're not in the
Yes.
business of accumulating
It's
extra
a
money.
planned event.
I got it.
Yeah,
Got
okay,
it.
now it's
Yeah.
making sense.
Yeah, it's not an
Thank you.
emergency
Thank
thing,
you.
it's a
Because
planned
we,
event.
Yes.
we replenish that we put 300 to 350
Right, to
each
meet
year
what we
in there, so
determined
we
was the
keep it-
proper amount.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Those two.
Going back to enterprise funds?
Yep.
I still have questions on the schools, so we'll do enterprise and then
We'll
we
get
can
to
come
that.
back. Okay.
Yep. The schedule you have on page 123
123.
is sort of
Stevens
misleading, and I brought that to Andrew's attention because it almost looks like you're going negative retained earnings.
Yes, and it's missing.
It's missing a
supposed to
word.
say
That was
use
in the
of retained.
response.
It's supposed to be use of retained earnings.
Yep.
Right, it was
So-
mislabeled.
And the balance as of
Because if you look at,
2018 is $316,000, right?
yes.
So if you actually
316.
roll this thing forward, it all works out apparently.
Right.
Right.
And it does say less use of retained earnings, at
Yeah, it
least it
does.
does on my end.
Yeah, it does.
On
You're
mine
actually,
it
you're
does.
actually referring to page 121,
Yeah.
Oh,
not
Right.
123.
123 has the.
121 is what you're referring
What do
to.
you-
120, oh, no, I'm actually referring to 123 where it shows retained earnings apparently, but it's
this
not.
is online what I'm showing, guys, so if it was updated in the last couple of days.
No,
this
this
is-
No,
one's-
I have, yeah, it's in my book.
Yeah.
It says,
Less use of retained earnings.
but you're talking about the,
The question you posed to us was referring to page 121.
I know how you're using it, but when you
Okay.
look at it, the schedule here,
you're looking at the projected fund balance.
bingo.
Yes, you're not looking at retained earnings, you're looking at the fund balance after, yes, and you are correct.
And you're saying why
It
is
is
it
driving
negative?
it to
How
the
could it be?
negative in the future years. Yes,
Oh,
It-
okay.
Wait a minute, how could a fund balance be negative?
because we're showing you
It's
that
only a
it-
projection.
it's a projection. And
It's-
next year it will be revised from the current year and out.
It's no different that if you
Than
listened
Andrew's
or
five-year
watched
plan.
the town manager's
Five-year plan.
five-year projection of operating
Yep.
budget.
It goes to the
After year
negative.
2, and especially in year 5, it's a disastrous negative.
Footnote?
I wouldn't have done that.
Okay.
Not for that particular
No,
fund.
no, I
Gotcha.
wouldn't.
I understand
Because there's
that.
not a lot there. This the.
Right, but it's to understand that this is the way the Stevens estate is running.
I'm perfectly fine with the use of it. I just said, wait a minute.
Yep.
And I actually said to Andrew, he said, this thing's dead on arrival, if that's really the intention is to go negative.
No, by the time we get there, they'll all be positive numbers or 0 at the worst.
So the question, next question really is there a reserve type policy for the Stevens estate like there is for the other two enterprise funds?
For the use of retained earnings?
For- yeah,
Yes, it's a.
To maintain a balance?
Yep, and I believe it's
2 months?
2 months' worth of expenditures for the Stevens estate versus the enterprises at 4.
Okay.
Yep.
Any other questions? Oh, we have a question relative
I
to
want
schools?
to go back to the middle of our email volley.
Absolutely, go for it.
And tell me-
I've been waiting for it, Jen. I
Here it
reread
comes.
this before I came
I
over.
know you did. Okay, so can we go to the Franklin Elementary
Sure.
comment of why is that in there? And you're probably going to tell me that
a 5-year
other
plan that
schools
extends
is in the
to
6th
26.
year and it's in 26.
Correct.
Okay. Clearly, I am having issues with school renovations being pushed so far out. We all, I think we know that. So can you just talk to me about why Franklin and not a couple of the other schools for in the next 5 years?
The
And
schools,
are they saying
this
it's
is
not
set
a
in
top
st-
priority?
No,
I
first of
don't
all,
know.
this is not set in stone. I mean,
I
we're
know.
still a number of years away, and as you saw from Facilities Master Plan 1, we did probably 3 flips
We changed.
I know.
over the course of the 7 years. When we get to the $50,000 in FY20, that's, at the end of that is when we will determine the extent of the sequencing of those projects. We're making a projection really 5 to 8 years away from now. That's pretty tough to do. So
I'm just having a problem with the 5 to 8 years.
I think that's ultimately the.
That's what I'm having a problem with is it's not a lull.
no, I
In
understand.
FY '20 and '21, but we have less expenditures, and why are the schools not inserted in
And we
there?
would have had the same discussion in 2020 when it was shown that the senior center was going to be in 2018. Why wait so long? It's the seniors. it's a very detailed, long-range plan that has been proven to be effective. As I said, these projects, or the sequence of these projects, has not yet been fully determined. Might it turn out that, let me see what the other schools are. Might it turn out that the Kittredge gets moved before the Franklin, that gets moved before the Atkinson? Sure. We don't know at this stage.
Right. But not move to FY '20 or '21?
No.
And that's because we don't want to take on more debt?
That's because we want to stay with the
our
guidelines of being
ratings.
at 5%. And as Andrew addressed in his cover letter, there are a couple of years that we are a smidgen over that 5%, but we will work to make that correction
Yeah.
when the time comes. It's an accepted financial policy to stay at the 5% or lower. When, again, we used to be anywhere from 6.5 to 7 at times.
I know. I know we're doing so much better. I do. But you always want more.
I understand. And actually, the better you do, the more you want.
Yep.
So when do you determine that that's not appropriate? So like if you have one parameter that you have to stay in line with, so it's 5% debt, right? So the only other thing you can do is either increase revenue or take revenue from something else, and you're saying that.
No, we can do a couple of different things. For instance,
So let's
if we-
talk about those.
If we determine, I'm just using these
Yeah,
as
yeah.
an examples. The Atkinson School has been determined to be the top priority of the schools.
Okay.
You know, following Jennifer's question. And that gets moved to number 1 on the list.
Mm-hmm.
And the Atkinson School, as opposed to the Franklin Elementary, which, now these numbers don't jive, but let's say the Atkinson is $1.5 million to $2 million more than the school that its places took. We then have to do a shuffling of the deck of other projects in that year, which is what we've done in the past too, in order to stay at that 5%. We may make a decision that, okay, we're not gonna be able to build 8 classrooms, and we're only gonna be able to build 6 classrooms because of the constraints that we have in our budget. So there are conscientious decisions made depending on what you're looking at and what you're assessing. You know, as I said, we've shuffled projects. We may have moved them up a year or moved them back a year in order to make that 5% level.
Okay, I completely understand.
Or
that.
sometimes we flip-flop projects.
Okay.
Totally.
So what if the community says, excuse me, what if the community says this is what we want? I mean, what is your response to that? That's, we're going to have a conversation. I'm trying to.
No, I'm trying to
you
figure
know,
out
like,
how to be diplomatic in
I
this
understand.
response.
So maybe I should have waited until later. But I'm just trying to understand all of our options.
It is
If you have a whole room full of gents, right, and they're
Oh.
very vocal, a whole town full of them, what is
Which we do, which we do, which we
Right,
do.
so what
To a
I'm
certain
trying-
extent, we do.
so I'm trying to
And
understand
it's great to
that.
have that, by the way. We've established financial policies,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not to say that they will always and forever be followed right to the letter of the T. May they be tweaked? Of course, there's always a possibility. But it is establishing and adhering to these financial policies that have allowed us to be where we currently are in a financially stable and probably better than stable position, that if you were part of this group 7-8 years ago, you'd have been pulling your hair.
I've heard.
You know, it's worked. You know, he'll probably, if he's watching or if he watches this later, his philosophy has always been plan the work the plan.
And we're not gonna do something
You
that's gonna
know?
be detrimental to our financial situation.
Absolutely
Right.
not. I think.
Wasn't there with the schools also, I know when they decided to go to the kindergarten centralized facility, some of the rationale behind that was that you couldn't have all the schools under construction at the same time.
Well, the intent wasn't
that
going to
would
be that, right. One of the options that was addressed during the feasibility study of the that led to deciding a standalone kindergarten
Right.
center. The first plan, if you remember, was really was to spend $1.5 million, basically building a couple of classrooms here, a couple of classrooms there.
Right, at all 3 schools.
In
or at all
essence, that was
5
it.
schools, or,
Um,
yeah.
with a really in-depth analysis and feasibility, it was determined that by moving, I think we're going from 14 kindergarten classes rooms to 16, and whoever's listening, and if I don't have the numbers exactly correct, I apologize. And what that does now is it creates 14 classrooms at the various elementary schools to address larger size issues in certain, third grades at a particular school, that kind of stuff. So it was a domino effect that it was determined that was the best way to go.
I can't find it. Can I ask another question? Of course I can. You guys are going to say no to
I
me.
have all your original questions.
I know,
Do you
but I
want me to
don't have
follow?
this one, and I apologize.
Oh,
And
do you
I
want your original
apologize.
list?
No, I don't.
Oh.
I have that. I didn't put it on there. The fire,
The fire station.
is it the fire station 2?
Two.
Could you just explain to me what's going on with the station and why
We
it
don't
needs
know
to be
yet. I mean,
renovated?
Fire Station 2 is not all, obviously is not as old as Fire Station 1 originally was.
And where's 2, by the way?
The
Because
one
I
in
don't.
Johnson Street, right
right across
opposite the
from the
youth
youth
center.
center. Got
Right
it.
across
Okay.
from
We
Drummond.
only have 2 fire stations.
I'm glad I don't really know, because that means my house hasn't been in trouble. I understand. The one I drive by every day, twice a day, I know. Sorry.
So Fire Station 2 is going to need some work. It's probably close now to 45, 50 years old.
Yeah, okay.
The housing accommodations for the firefighters, the accommodations for the apparatus has sort of outgrown the space it has now. It's
It's
drive
pretty
by it
small
a little bit
considering
more
what they cover.
slowly.
Yeah.
On the
I don't know how to fit the
Salem
trucks
Street
in.
side, it has
Yeah.
a unique configuration in
Yeah.
that it has sort of like this undergrounding kind of thing.
Yep.
So it needs some work.
Okay.
So that's why we've included as part of
The
facilities
planning
master
and then
plan
the
too.
actual done.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
Yeah,
in his-
200, so to answer, I think a question, so the 200,
It was 200 and then 2 million
200,
or
which is
something.
part of the design, and
Right,
then,
right, right.
one-
And then
and
the-
then $1 or $2 million
$2
or
million for the
something.
actual work.
For the actual work, correct.
Okay. Which will change once we approve it and then go to bid.
Right.
Okay, got it.
Try not to, but,
We
yeah.
actually,
you know, I mean,
you
For the
know,
first 4 or 5 years.
I was gonna say, you've gotta keep in mind,
inflation
we
times,
came up with these numbers in 2010. And until we hit project number 5 out of the 7 is when we had to tweak the estimates. So,
Pretty good.
we've held the line a lot. We've done value engineering. We have been very resistant until we got to the kindergarten center of going back to town meeting and saying, we need more money for this project. We had not done it.
Yeah, yeah.
Any other questions?
Just as a note, Jen, when Andrew responded, he did say that there were issues about having the station number 2, the fire station, being ahead of Franklin. And he said he could discuss those at a future meeting. So we may just want to put a pin in that for a future
Yeah,
meeting.
I'm done for now.
Apparently, there's some sort of rationale for it,
Yeah.
but it's not fully
Yeah,
described
that's why I
in
didn't
here.
go further.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
And again, that will be more properly vetted as the closer we get as to what the sequencing will be.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
We're moving on, if there's no other questions on the capital improvement plan. Thank you for your presentation. I know
I'm staying.
Ray's wants to stay for,
Number 3, I'm
to
staying.
talk about his interesting night last night.
Want is a strong word, isn't it?
But
Sure.
but I would like to,
Listen, I'll tell you, you might as well take advantage of me. I mean, this is the last year you're getting to see me, so.
This is your last finance committee meeting.
The plan is to retire at the end of September, so. Take full advantage.
Are we retiring again? I'll be 50?
At 50, God bless you.
why do you
Really?
think they're
That's
building a
that's
new
that's
senior
a
center?
surprise.
I didn't think it was official. I thought that this was,
Well, it's not official till it's official.
No,
but
but I
it's
know.
in the plans,
okay.
unless things dramatically.
Well, you're coming to
change.
all of our meetings now.
Unless-
We're trying to write back of it.
Unless things change dramatically, that is the plan.
Okay. Good for you.
So the next thing on our topics is.
You live in the town, right? So you can actually maybe apply for FinCom.
I actually started on Ways and Means in Burlington, because in Burlington, it's a representative town meeting.
But you live in Burlington, right?
I do.
Oh, so you don't live.
Yeah,
Okay.
Burlington with all that
No, I live in
great
Burlington, not in North Andover.
tax revenue and that nice commercial area in Burlington.
I'm sorry?
Thank your lucky stars for that if you had to work in town and.
I have heard horror stories, but I've never experienced it, so I couldn't tell you.
Next on the topic is the review of the school budget, and just a little anecdote. I got a call from a
Jim
nervous
Mealy.
Jim Mealy at 3:30. Says, "What? But they're talking about school budget? Am I supposed to be there?" Like,
That's
no.
because I said to him, "Are you coming to the finance committee meeting tonight?
Oh,
Because
is
there's
that
a
what-
school
how that
budget. It's on the agenda."
So no, purpose of putting that on there was actually it was originally the school committee was going to be presented the budget by Dr. Price last Thursday, but we had a little snow. So that didn't happen. It's been postponed until this Thursday. Sasha, are you still planning on going?
I'm gonna be away.
Oh,
We
so,
both away. That was the.
so I'll be there present then. I was
Sorry about
planning on
that.
being there, but I'll be there. But I had asked Sasha, and we're doing things that's sort of ahead of the curve as opposed to, oh, we get the book, now we're gonna read it and then ask the questions as we fly
Gonna be
through.
And also, there was
You're
no
gonna
need
be
to have her
proactive?
present and then come back again and
It's a little bit of a
answer.
change, yeah.
Just
Yeah.
one visit.
So,
Yeah.
we're-
Yeah.
so I've asked Sasha and Jennifer to sort of give us a high-level briefing of what they've seen in the budget so far, and things that maybe even might tee me up relative to my attendance at the school committee meeting on Thursday. Brief. Which one of you two would like to go first?
Which would I like to clear my mind on?
Can I ask a curiosity question? You're gonna discuss this, you're gonna have a discussion on the school department budget that has not yet been presented to the school committee?
There are public documents,
Okay. Because they were part of the agenda package already
Yes.
that were published.
and I think
Gotcha.
people were just,
Got it.
my
Okay.
idea is to generate thoughts.
But you understand the
questions and
question.
ideas. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm not saying why this or why that.
Yeah, okay.
It's more of an oversight of what's happening.
Gotcha.
And I think there's one sheet in there, and I think Jenny, you just had your hands on it, that sort of explained the
Yeah, I'm
big
trying to
picture.
find it. It's the summary, I don't know if you guys got to see this, it's the summary, I'm gonna call it a letter and a summary that she put in there, but what I wanna do is actually pull it up for a second, if I could. What do you guys have in terms of printouts? Angela, you said she printed out everything, but
So
is
it'd be
it,
on
Yeah,
page-
so they have the.
is that
It'd be
exhibit
on-
summary?
it'd
The
be on page-
superintendent's
it'd be on
recommended
page two.
FY nineteen budget.
Okay, yeah.
With the summary.
So, yep, so again, we're just going for, according to this, it says 3.65% increase for FY '19. I'm going to point out
What
what,
percent increase?
3.6.
3.65, yep, it's on page 2, okay? Obviously, on page 3, it covers some real specifics in terms of staffing. And then she goes into explanation on page 4 and 5. I think 6, again, we're talking about curriculum funding, librarian and tutors. I think what is most important to be focused on is page 7, and which is the looking forward. You want to see it? Do you want me
No.
to pull it up? Okay.
No.
You look puzzled. This is the discussion about the elementary classroom size, and that the budget does not allow, and I'm quoting from her words, this budget does not allow us to backfill any of the vacated classrooms, as our focus needs to be on staffing the new early education center. The middle school class size, they did the first attempt to the MSBA, which is going to the state. That was unsuccessful in getting funding for the middle school renovations. They will try again, but the way she has written it is that we will try again, but it doesn't look optimistic based on how many other schools have been turned down as well.
It's sometimes a 7-year process.
Yeah,
You
it
have to
says
apply
6 to
7
7
Yeah.
years and was successful, and also they're seeing more and more declines.
Very unusual to get funded in your first 3 years of requests.
And then, of course, the discussion is try again, and then do we have to start having a town discussion about, we're not going to get this support, and what do we do? The third point on her looking forward is the English learners. There's no question that there's an increase in cost for English learning program, if I'm saying this correctly, and that we're strained to provide the services to them. So they want to do a comprehensive English learning program with certified teachers, but they could not put that into the FY19 budget. And then the leadership structure, I think, is really just talking about the principal for the middle school.
Sure.
So there are some concerns
And I
that
think
will
we'll
be
learn
addressed.
more once we get the full presentation
Yeah,
too, from
yeah.
Superintendent Price.
Big picture, again, this 3.65% increase, of which 2.81 of that 3.65 is
Microphone.
cost of level services, meaning it's maintenance.
Yes. It's not proactive.
Year-over-year maintenance, and there's 0.84%, or $399,000 that is being spent primarily, if not exclusively, on the ECC, filling the ECC. So there's not a lot, and I don't expect that percentage, 3.65, or the maintenance of 2.81, to change anytime soon. I think there's always going to be that small delta there, and there's unique ways. The town has been great using, for example, I think it's Medicare, to help pay for the curriculum. I think that is just an amazing way, use of resources. But how many of those things can we pull out of our pocket? So it's hard. The sources of revenue aren't there. And if we're trying to really, really, really reduce the student-teacher class sizes, I'm not sure what the path forward is. I was hoping this document would try to attack that.
Just for clarification, in case there's some confusion, I believe the school department has started referring to the kindergarten center and the ECC totally as the ECC.
Okay.
Yes.
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 Preschool, what are we?
No, I think because the buildings are connected or whatever, they're going to be referring to it entirely as the early childhood center as opposed to this is the
Until there's a
kindergarten center.
naming. Isn't there a naming thing going on?
I read
Something?
that.
Okay.
Yes, I
I'm
read
sorry,
that.
there's so much.
Poll out there for the name?
Yeah, they want to come up with a
There
point.
is.
Okay.
I'm going for schooly McSchool face, I just.
I did not see. That's why I avoid Facebook.
Going for schooly McSchool face, that's gonna be my request.
I don't have it, so I don't
That's why I
care.
don't either.
If there are any specific questions you'd like me to ask during any comment period at the school committee meeting, please get them to me. We will be bringing in Dr. Price and Jim Mealy in here for a more lengthy review of the budget, but quite candidly, this is the first year I've had, maybe it's because I've been through it so many times that I'm able to say, bang, 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 it's done. I mean, it is pretty black and white. There's not a lot of pieces there to fool around with, so.
I would just, the other point I would make, I know you refer to it as maintenance. It's commonly referred to as level services.
Sorry.
Which also includes salary increases.
That's-
you know,
uh,
so-
Yeah, but
Don't worry.
I understand what you're saying, but
Yeah.
it helps use layman terms for us and others. Me.
I do the Time Magazine 8th grade level.
But if I was
It's
one of
supposed
those
to be a
people at
fourth
home
grade level,
listening, I'd
so-
say, oh, that's just their,
That's an
upkeep of the
expensive
buildings,
maintenance.
yeah,
Yeah.
No,
yeah.
Yeah.
no, you're absolutely right.
And for us, all of us, I
Status
know you
quo.
guys have paper, but I did put these documents that she sent out for the public meeting in the drive. They're under school, though. I am separating them and not leaving them in the main folder.
Any other thoughts, Sasha, relative to the school budget?
Except that we have one day to get to our questions, right?
Well, it's the same question.
Okay.
Yep.
Spend a little bit of time on the medical marijuana. What's the OD stand for? Osgood
Medical
What is
marijuana
it
overlay
now?
district.
Overlay District. I had to tell you this morning.
Well, no, we're like MMOD, manager on duty.
I like it.
Some kind of weird.
But
We
so-
didn't know of an association with those initials.
So, for the record, this is not a finance committee recommendation, yea or nay, on the warrants. Our role will be more observant, but I also know that we do have a role because it has a financial and economic impact in town. And I do have a way of saying, hey, there's something here to be said about new sources of revenue. But we had Chuck was good enough to get an NDA signed so he could speak with the developers regarding their finances. And I've asked Chuck to basically give us what he can disclose in a brief talk about what you've seen, what you know.
Can I just make a statement first, if I may, Mr. Chair?
Sure.
So, there was lengthy discussion at the selectmen's meeting last night, and the bottom line is that Article 6, which is what you're referring to, which was filed as a citizen petition to authorize the Board of Selectmen and the town manager to enter into a host community agreement that included a number of dollars that Chuck probably looked into in detail, is of no consequence, and whatever town meeting votes will not be binding, simply because the Board of Selectmen and the town manager already have the authorization under state law to negotiate host community agreement. Last night, as a subsequent vote, the Board of Selectmen authorized the town manager to resume negotiations. There had been some preliminary discussion. Those negotiations will not be public until there's a final agreement. There are two trains of thought that, neither one that I'm advocating, that that citizen petition was filed just because it generates a special town meeting. As you are probably aware, when a citizen petition for a special town meeting is received by the Board of Selectmen, they have 45 days to schedule the town meeting. There is another train of thought that numbers were put in by the applicant in order to entice people and make their eyes big. But I can tell you that the Board of Selectmen voted to take no action, recommended to take no action, and that's what the explanation at town meeting will be, because again, the bottom line is regardless of well, first of all, if Article 1 passes, everything else is moot. If Article 4 doesn't pass, everything else is moot. But if everything goes according to someone's game plan, it'll be the town manager and the Board of Selectmen. You can look at those numbers that were presented as part of the article as a starting point, as an end point, as a midpoint, as a fly to catch the fish, whatever you want. But it doesn't mean anything. And that's going to be relayed to town meeting over and over again. And again, if they vote yes, if they vote no, if they vote whatever, the only thing that matters is the vote on number 1 and the vote on number 4. Their vote on.
1 and 4 or 1 and 2? I have it up.
Well, one really starts. So one is the citizen petition to ban all marijuana in town.
Period.
Obviously, if that passes, the rest of the article is moot.
Yes, understand.
Okay? 4 is the planning board rezoning of 1600 Osgood Street, which will require 2/3 vote. If you remember at Maytown meeting, that received 58% of the vote. So, although the majority, but not the 2/3. So if it doesn't, if 1 passes, town meeting is going to be adjourned, because the rest of it doesn't mean anything.
Clarification, Ray, on 1, that's a simple majority?
Yes, 1 is a simple majority because it is a bylaw that there will be absolutely no marijuana activity in town. Growing, retail, cultivation, research, blah, blah, blah. The five scenarios laid out by law.
Right.
If 1 passes, we're done town meeting. If 4 fails, we're done town meeting. If 1 and 2 don't pass, 3, 4, and 5 pass, 6 don't mean anything.
Are these online somewhere, the
Yes.
drafted warrants?
Yes.
Yeah, if you go to,
See them last night.
yeah, come down, come down,
Is it this link?
right there, that link right there.
Yeah.
Can the petitioner remove Article 6?
Yes,
Has that had discussion happened?
we can, again,
I know you can't.
yeah, the other
request that they-
point I made at Selectmen's meeting last night, when someone was claiming that some of those numbers were wrong. A citizen petition, by law, we must publish word for word, letter for letter. Even if we know that a number portrayed or a sentence or statement is 100% incorrect, we cannot change it. It must be published as the citizen petition is filed. So there has been no detailed look at, which I'm sure is what you were gonna, detailed looked at the project, that was another thing that was
Actually,
talked about.
What Chuck was looking more at, if I recall our conversation, Chuck, was the underlying financial health of the developer. So it had nothing to do
Yeah.
with projections.
Okay, my apologies. But again, I just wanted to make sure that you all knew that if it comes to fruition that a host community agreement is negotiated, it will be done in private, discussed by the selectmen in executive session because it is in negotiations, and only put forward in public when it's formally voted. The other thing that people have talked about is the developer has also put in there some numbers about property taxes and whatever. We don't have any intention of making this any kind of a pilot, because if it was a pilot, then it does come to town meeting. They are fully responsible for any and all taxes that they will be responsible for. So none of the host community agreement will have a pilot segment to it.
Good.
Thank you.
Go ahead, I was thinking about how to phrase my next question.
Yeah, Tim, thanks. I volunteered to meet with Dr. Goldstein privately to review some of the basic financial due diligence questions that I had 2 meetings ago, and his representative didn't really have the information at hand. And he was very open and forthright. I met with him privately for probably half an hour. And there were 4 takeaways from my 4 main questions. The first one is, well, just for some background, it would be one thing to approve this project and have it not succeed, but it would be another for us to approve the project and have it not succeed because there was the financial health or liquidity of the developer. And part of the basic due diligence here needs to be that he can make some representations that they're actually viable to fund this over the coming years. Because it may not go gangbusters in year 1 or year 2. There may be a blight in the crop. There may be a change in regulation. They may need to have to spend millions and millions more dollars to get this to viability. This is not a lottery ticket that he's opening up at Charlie's Chocolate Factory. So the basic questions, and also knowing that we've all, I think, taken it on an article of faith that this is a local doctor who's very wealthy and he has this money. And nobody really, to my knowledge, knew that for a fact. So, second, so first of all, the business is very well capitalized, highly liquid, and the only detail I share with you is there's no debt. And there's an enormous amount of cash flow and net worth behind this project. And my estimation could fund 5 projects this size and probably more. And second, the developer, Dr. Goldstein, has a far-flung empire. He owns other businesses. And so my main question around that is this business somehow cross-collateralized with those? So if they got out over their skis in the oil and gas industry and the oil went down, are they going to have to shut this place down to fund the losses somewhere else? And the answer is no. This is not cross-collateralized with any of their other assets. It's completely unique and carved out, so to speak, legally and financially. And the third question is, are you prepared to, if their original budget goes awry, are you prepared to stay around for years and perhaps another, say, $5 million of investment? And I didn't get any reps and warranties or guarantees about this in writing, but I believe, based on our conversation, that they have the capital and will to see this through to the tune of many more millions of dollars of spend. And then my fourth question is really not financial, but it's more operational. He's owned this building for 14 years, I believe, since 2003.
I was gonna say 12, but yeah, it could be 14.
Or I guess in 03, Lucent said they were leaving, and he,
Yeah.
So over 10 years he's owned it, and he's been involved in all the business development activity to bring businesses to North Andover, especially into that area and that building. And we've had several presentations from other members of your various departments about business development activity here. And frankly, I've been impressed at how many companies are moving here and new jobs and things like that. I didn't realize. My question, Tim, about this was, if not this, what next? And so there is nothing like this on the table. There's nothing even on the horizon on the table. I think you guys heard it a few weeks ago. The way they do business development is they wait for a company to contact the state to find out what are the good towns to move into and who has the tax breaks, and then the state will call it the towns. So we sit around and wait for the phone to ring for companies that say they want to move here. That's what we do. And once in a while, you're fortunate that a resident is an entrepreneur and well capitalized and wants to do something like this. But so the four, just to reiterate, the four answers, the four questions. One, they're liquid with no debt and highly capable of funding this. Two, this is not cross-collateralized with any of his other conglomerate operations. Three, they're prepared to backstop this until it is successful financially. And four, there's nothing else like this on the horizon and nothing even remotely close. And that's a whole separate topic, by the way, for later discussion. I thought the last meeting we had when we talked about the opportunity between 114 and Middleton, that was eye-opening how much development potential there could be in North Andover. So I wanted to share that with you because these are major financial questions that had not been answered, and I guess I was satisfied.
And just to piggyback, and these were public comments made last night, and I'm not taking a position, just repeating what was said last night. They don't yet have a game plan of how to get from 0 to 1.1 million square feet of cultivation just yet. They don't know if that's going to happen over 2 years, 3 years, or 4 years, or 5 years. They will be, if the bylaw passes, at least 15% has to be the R&D. There was specific questions to Attorney Rosen regarding what companies have committed.
Yes.
He was comfortable giving 5 or 6 names, but then he said there are a number of other companies that have expressed interest, but obviously until we have the commitment, they're not going to enter into an agreement or a lease with us because, again, it's a chicken and egg kind of question.
I'm so glad that you did this and thought of it and went out and met with him and did the vetting.
Yes, thank you very much for doing this.
Yeah.
That added a great deal of underpinning to our deliberations if we ever get that far.
Right.
Yeah.
We should not forget that he opened up and showed you these numbers.
Yes.
You
He's
know,
ve-
that he
he's
was
very
not, there
willing.
was no requirement for him to do that, you know, and to share, you know, his private wealth, you know. So respect that he did that, you know. It was great.
Yeah, but I think that's also, while it's commendable, I think it's kind of standard and par for the course.
I'm going to echo what Thomas and Karen have just said because I've spoken to a few people and they thought that it was a plan for you to go forward. And I'm like, no, it's happened. And they were shocked. So it's pretty, it's shocked in the sense that you were able, Dr. Goldstein was so accommodating to you. So I do thank you. A lot of it has to do with you, so thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So, just, did anyone bring up the legality of this being illegal at a federal level?
Of course they did.
Right, but in a productive, and I mean that in a productive manner, and did our town attorney speak to that, or was there any?
No,
Okay.
again, and I believe there's an article that I just read today in the North Andover Citizen, which is a quite extensive article with Dr. Goldstein addressing exactly what you just asked. But yes, one particular gentleman stood up last night and was very adamant that none of this should go forward because of Mr. Sessions' declaration last Thursday and the local, the Mass Attorney, whatever his title is,
Yeah,
U.S. Attorney, proclamation of yesterday, whatever, but
Interesting times. So I know we don't have on the Finance Committee a sign-off or recommendation.
I noticed that.
It's not financial.
right,
The warrants is zoning, the other one's law.
bylaw.
Bylaw. So it's not financial, and I get that. But I also know too that as citizens or even representatives of FinCom, we could take a position and make that known as part of the town. And if that is something of interest amongst this
How do we
team here.
take up, first of all, are we on the stage or not?
At the present time, unlikely.
Okay.
It's a size thing. It's
It-
if
it's
if the
fine.
size
It's gotta be-
accommodate.
I think it's more of a raised platform than a
Yes,
stage,
if-
because it's gonna
if
be
the
in the field house.
If the size,
Oh, it is.
yes.
It's not-
We're
If
expecting,
if it was,
we're expecting more than 800 people.
Yeah, okay.
if
there
if we were in the
12
auditorium,
last
we would be on stage.
It's fine. So my question is, how
Yeah.
do we, as FinCom, take a position if we're not giving a recommendation?
The position taken is to encourage or to suggest, especially since, I'm taking a view of this as found money that regardless of how much or how little, it's never going to happen again.
But do we walk up to the mic and say we're representing
Actually,
FinCom and
actually, I've talked with Mark as the moderator, Mark DeSilva, the moderator, about making sure that we have a say, formal say in the presentation, and he'll give me 2 minutes to do so.
And let me tell you, in answer to one of the questions that was posed last night, my response was, the town, when it negotiates this host community agreement, because one of the things, or several times it was thrown out, well, how do you know that these numbers they're throwing out are legit, or their revenue and all that sort of stuff? You need to give us some credit. We're gonna do due diligence. We're not just gonna accept their numbers. There's going to be a check and balance system, et cetera, et cetera. So,
Glad to loan check out to you guys if you need more help.
I'm going to Breckenridge. You need me to do any work?
well, I will say that a former member of the Finance Committee did stand up at the microphone and state that all of these numbers should be passed by the Finance Committee because you are an independent review board and whatever, and he was thanked. He was thanked for his comment.
Do we have to decide on this, don't we? Or do
Yeah, and we do need to decide, because I also know that it's whatever document we do is going to be drafted, is going to be a team thing, and it's going to have to be very carefully said. But it has to be forceful in the sense, like, this is the position we're going to take. It isn't more,
So
it's more,
can I think out loud for a question? So let's say 1 fails, 2 fails, 3, 4, and 5 pass. There's really no need for 6, and the applicant withdraws, which is what happened at last town meeting
Right.
when something was presented that was of no consequences and non-binding. You're then left with a prepared something that you'll never deliver, correct?
no, it's part of the discussions of the warrants before they come up.
No,
Okay.
I think it's a
Oh, I got you.
case.
Okay, I got you.
It's not
Not
a
on
comment
6.
directed.
Okay, and at which stage do you get? At which?
You'll-
That's going to be a strategic decision. At which stage?
That's right, to be
Yeah.
determined, really to be determined. And I get it. I get the emotions on both sides, could be even in this room. I get it. It's either black or white. And I'm not going to sway an opinion.
But that's for us to discuss.
That's right.
I'm not trying
Yeah.
to-
No. I was just
Yeah.
thinking out loud there for a second.
But it's I think it's important because it's more than just the host community. It's more than
Yes.
just the property taxes. It is the economic development that has more money potential
That's right.
than just those things associated with the Massachusetts Innovation Works.
Yep,
So
absolutely.
Oh, I understand.
I would like to go around the room and just say, do we want to take a position that would be stated at the special town meeting?
Can you clarify that? Because that's a loaded question.
Depends what the position
Because,
is.
Touche.
I kind of hold the same opinion as I did last year. I think it's inappropriate for the finance committee to be voting on a zoning bylaw.
We're not.
So if you have something that is an overall statement, that is a different. That's different than if we
Right.
have a favorable
But
than a
this is
recommendation.
a zoning, this is a zoning board issue that is supposedly gonna generate 2,000 jobs and $5 million a year in
It's financial.
fees and taxes.
It
It's-
absolutely
To me, it's
correlates.
absolutely, if
Yeah.
I were a
You can
citizen,
call it
like I was
that.
last year,
I want the FinCom to talk.
I would wanna know what the finance committee thinks about this.
And that's
I- if
appropriate
I-
in a certain way. So if you
Because a
wanna
lot of
draft
this is the
something
financial
comparison
pitch.
way-
This is all
I will
economics.
absolutely draft something.
Yeah.
I'm just really taking in
Are we
sort of a.
drafting or not? Is
Straw
what he
poll.
has to know, because then he's gotta talk about timing and when it's presented, or 2 minutes and so forth.
Yeah.
We can't wait till next
Do you really
meeting.
feel strongly it's not a finance committee bailiwick?
What? Jen?
No, she's
No.
talking, he's speaking
Sasha.
because I said it.
No, let her-
I believe that for example, like we discussed last year, if we were to provide a formal recommendation on a article that is specific to zoning, regardless of the size, it's a very slippery slope on where does that stop? And at what size do you decide that it is appropriate for the finance committee to or to not weigh in?
But-
So if we want to weigh in on an overall the financial impact of what this would do to our town and have a conversation about that and draft some kind of letter, that's a different conversation than having a favorable or unfavorable or no action recommendation on a specific article.
What is the slippery slope you're talking about? Whose slope?
We're not
Sure,
allowed
so
to
at
do
every
that.
town
It-
meeting, if there's another article that pertains to a different aspect of zoning that has to do with a different project, at what point do you decide that it is appropriate or inappropriate for the finance committee to weigh in?
This is a very unique project.
Yeah, you need to flip that around and
it's-
say,
Which
how
is-
big does a project need to be in
Right,
order
like,
for
would it be a
everybody in the town to weigh in on
2,000
it?
condo development?
Right.
Is that something now that we discuss zoning? I don't think we're allowed to here.
Here's my takeaway.
Well, 2,000 condos would be.
Here's my-
No,
No.
There's
No,
very
I'm saying-
specific
I
functions
think what we're allowed
for-
to say
right,
is only
right,
an
right,
umbrella statement.
I'm planning on an umbrella statement of the impact and the importance of the actions being taken at special town meeting.
Not on a specific
I'm
warrant.
we're not going to, nor can we sign off as a recommending yea or nay on the warrants. I don't, that's not in our bailiwick. However, what is in our bailiwick, which
Agreed.
is the higher level impact, whether it be the host community agreement, whether it be the property taxes, whether it be the
Jobs and
jobs that are
revenue.
growth and everything else is gonna positively impact the town. I mean, let's face it, there will not be another opportunity to have this kind of revenue source, big or small,
Yep.
again.
And
Wait,
that
wait,
makes
hold on.
perfect sense.
That to
to
me
have-
is impossibly vague. I have no
But we're
idea
not-
what your
we're not-
umbrella is.
But we're not
Did the
enough.
finance committee weigh in last year?
No, it was a.
Were you guys on stage?
Yeah, we did
Yes.
weigh in, but
Yeah.
what do we
No,
weigh in on the
no, we did
host
not.
agreement?
This is a unique project. I think we need to,
There was no host.
Yeah.
Last year
Weigh
was
in.
the zoning article.
So Karen,
People
how would
wanna
you-
know.
Karen, how would
You
you,
guys
how
know.
would you weigh in on this?
Somebody
Because,
say anything?
I mean, by my general statement about this is found money that you'll never see again, that's actually telling people what direction this committee, how we favor it or don't favor it.
Yeah, last year I heard a lot of, people on stage, we didn't do the due diligence, or we didn't have a chance to ask all the questions, and so we're not gonna vote, or we're voting no. And I think this year, that's not an acceptable, first of all, it's never an acceptable answer
Yeah,
to
but we
say,
wouldn't
I
even
didn't
say
do my
that. We
homework.
weren't even.
I think
That's-
I'm not
that's
saying you
unfair.
said
That
that.
is
That's
incredibly
not,
unfair.
No,
that's
we
not-
couldn't say
I'm not
anything.
saying,
Any
that's not
committee
what you're saying, I'm saying
we
that.
couldn't take a
Last year,
position.
that's what I
Right.
heard, and I
That's
think
right.
that scared a lot of people, oh, this is half-baked, this isn't planned out, the people in the committees
That
haven't
was
asked
the
the
planning,
questions.
the planning board.
And
Right.
so, and I heard a lot of people say
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
that we haven't had the chance to do the
Yep.
work. And so this year, isn't it important to say, we have done the work, we have analyzed these numbers, we have understood the financial and economic impact. It is X, we don't have to make a recommendation on the vote, but I would want to hear, if I were a citizen and not on one of these committees, that the committees did the due diligence. Because last year I heard that nobody did.
Well, I can tell you that-
Exactly,
Do you guys
we were
remember
not
that?
allowed to do it.
I can tell you that.
Well, if we didn't have time, we didn't have the information.
No, I think we voted
Mostly it's
as
a
a
lie.
group that we were not.
Well,
Giving
over
our
my
opinion.
objection.
Over
Yeah.
my objection, because I
These
clearly
guys have
mentally
been
think I
open
did
and
vote
honest
on
about
something.
everything.
Yeah.
I have to agree that we didn't have.
Ask a question, get an answer.
But I think we have, because we have information now where this is all proceeded, we have, I don't think just the right, but we have the obligation
Yeah.
to say something at town meeting
be expected.
about this whole thing.
Unless we're
Thomas,
specifically not.
You
No,
have,
no, I think we're all saying the same thing. I don't know why we're discussing. I
Yeah,
think
we
we're
are.
all-
We are.
I think we're all
saying-
agreeing that we're
Yeah.
going
We're
to
staying
make a
away from the
2-minute
warrant, but we
statement,
say
not about a specific
something
warrant.
about the financial impact.
so
Yes.
I think
So
it's a.
why we're arguing?
Karen, I know you would want us to say we're in favor
Karen
of the
wants
warrant,
her warrant.
and this is
Kim
what's gonna
wants to
happen.
see what we say.
No, I don't want to do that.
Oh, I
okay.
thought you-
So, okay, I thought you
No,
were.
no, I want to say, we have done our due diligence. We've looked at these people. This is a unique situation, a unique opportunity for the town. We find that that this group is, if the town votes to do business with this group, is solid. And this group is well capitalized, has no debt. This is real. This is not spongy.
We can actually, I don't wanna get into the specifics of.
I liked your
financial
word of
health.
encourage, though. We encourage this to move forward.
Why not just lay it on the
Well,
line, what we did for due
If the committee
diligence?
really feels that way, I don't think we've all even
Okay,
made
well,
our
the
thoughts
conversation-
apparent about what we think about these things, but
I would like to
I mean-
encourage you to move forward.
Well, I mean,
I don't
whether or
care
not.
whether we vote for
whether
it or
not we would
against
vote
it.
for or against the warrant itself, as far as, as a.
yeah, maybe that's not even appropriate for you to encourage, or I don't know.
Oh,
I
I'm
mean, how do you
not,
guys
but I'm
wanna
not-
do this?
See, I want to do is make sure we have a consensus kind of statement that we can present. And there are people who are going to vote their conscience. They're going to say, I don't want the drugs in my town.
I don't care.
No,
I don't care how people vote. I
But-
just
but-
want them
but-
to know
but-
that we
but-
did the work.
But,
Yeah,
but it's,
right.
but it's, you know, it's, we all have our opinions. Mine is not different than many of yours, but it's because there is an opportunity here that will never be seen again. And the horses are out. You're not gonna get them back in, and it's time to move forward. So that's where I'm coming from right now.
Well, can we just take a table vote here of who would like to put together a statement of encouragement? Can I use that word?
Why don't you,
I-
why don't you draft it?
Well,
up?
I don't mind that, but is
wanna
everyone
try
in
to
agreement that
put
we
that
can
more notes
go
if
forward
this
with
is
this
an
as a
idea?
team? Anyone that's not against, that,
Wait, what was the question?
is there anyone that doesn't like the idea?
Oh, no, I'm fine with the idea.
No.
I don't know that it needs to be encouragement so much as,
A validation of the numbers.
right,
You
or,
say,
or that we need to say to
financials
people,
are okay.
look, you know, we sit here and we watch the town budget and we look at things like, you know, 2.81% to maintain level services, and we look at having a new ECC, and we look at the fact that we can't fund the teachers. The money has to come from somewhere. And we see that year after year on the finance committee. This is one of the places it might come from. That's not encouragement, it's not discouragement, it's saying this is the reality.
Yeah.
You know, we look at these
Yes.
budgets every year, and to achieve level funding, these are the kinds of dollars we need year after year after year.
So I'm
I
actually,
agree with Liz.
You know,
maybe,
so it's
And
not,
I do
it's not
too, and you-
encouragement so much as it is, hey, we've looked at the reality, in addition to saying, these people are solid, you know, we've done the due diligence, but also,
Yeah.
the reality of the budget says money's gotta come from somewhere.
So I don't.
So
mean to
take
be-
that into account
No,
when you
no.
do your voting.
Sasha?
And I agree that absolutely, and that allows. What I think would be appropriate is to allow people who don't look at this stuff all the time to have a framework of understanding of what this could or could not mean. That would be very helpful. What I don't want is to get into very specific things that have not been reviewed by every person here. Like, I think your due diligence was excellent and provided us with a framework and a level of comfortability potentially, but I haven't seen everything you have seen. So for me to for the committee to put their name on, you know,
Well, that's why the
specifics
words
to
are
that, I
important.
mean, I don't know if that's appropriate. I'm kind of just throwing it.
We could go
Yeah,
a step
that's only
further, I
one
mean.
part, that's only one part.
Of
Yeah,
course,
yeah,
I
yeah.
understand,
So, I
but
mean-
but we're about to. He's going to
I
spend
didn't,
time
I
drafting
don't,
this. So
Chuck,
what is?
Chuck's
Yeah.
not certifying to the financial statements,
Yeah,
the
we-
health of.
yeah.
No, but the
of
issue
Dr.
is, are we
Goldstein.
drafting it or not? And I think we're all in agreement. We're drafting something.
Yeah.
2 minutes, and you're drafting.
Yeah,
2
I don't
minutes?
think we can stay silent.
That's all we have.
It's too big.
I
get three. I think you
but-
get three.
You know, I mean.
The point is, this is not a big, broad PowerPoint deck.
Determine when this gem is going to be presented in this process.
I think that's a Mark
At what
DeSalvo
point?
decision,
Well,
right?
We can talk
It-
about it.
we-
once-
That's just
once-
a process.
exactly,
Yeah.
when it's going to happen.
Yep.
Who is going to do it?
Yep.
and whether we are going to present ourselves to take any questions.
I
I
think
think
that's
in that
allowed.
forum, there won't be any questions.
There
No.
probably will not be.
No.
All right,
If
well,
we-
And I'd
if
rather
we-
not.
If we put that out there, there would be.
Yeah, but
Absolutely.
I'd rather not.
So we will,
It would take all night.
yeah, it would probably take all night.
we
It would-
don't
that
know,
would
this is to Ray's original point, we don't know what. We don't know the magnitude of potential revenue coming from this development. However, I know if it does get passed, there will be something. And it's not a dollar.
No.
We want the
Okay.
opportunity.
So therefore, this is a lost opportunity, but that, I think the town should realize that and not lose it.
Yes. I think the word
you may need to
opportunity
be
is a very.
prepared. If I was part of the decision-making process, I probably wouldn't allow you to make your statement until Article 4 is presented, because your statement has no relevance to 1, 2, and 3, although it's all rolled into
It's all the
one.
same thing.
You know what I'm
So,
saying?
so, it's.
Yeah, it is.
Ray, this is coming down to, is those who,
Who want to hear it will hear it, and those who don't, don't.
yeah. And it's like
Correct.
it's not necessarily
Yeah.
gonna sway anyone's opinion.
Yeah, it's whoever can bring in the most people.
But to not have the FinCom not make a comment would look very odd.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
There's no question about that. I would agree with you. Well,
I
he'll
don't think there'll be
discuss
too many
It was-
gray area
It
people.
was
Quick question.
suggested that,
Yes.
At this point, where's the planning board sitting in terms of feeling comfortable with the project?
As we stand right now, they are having their first public hearing.
Tonight, right.
So by law, they're supposed to have one public hearing, but by process, they have 3. So they're meeting tonight, the 16th and the 23rd. At the end of the 23rd, they will have their vote. Now, keep in mind, Article 4 is not the petitioner's article. It is the planning board's article. So you can assume, or one can assume, that they're going to vote favorably on their own article, similar to what the selectmen did on their Article 3 last night. So again, they're not going to take a position till the night of the 23rd, because they're having 3 public hearings. As Mr. Simons clearly stated last night, he anticipates that as a result of these public hearings, there will probably be some language tweaking by the time they vote it, but not something dramatic and major, but some tweaking. And that's also it's also the reason why the selectmen voted for the recommendation to be made at town meeting, because they want to vote on what the actual language is going to be. And typically what happens is the selectmen will meet right before town meeting to make that decision.
Because I think that's important for us, because there are financial consequences if this is not appropriate and
well, sure,
the planning board isn't comfortable like
We're
we were
not-
last year, I think.
we're not submitting anything full. There's not any part of the document.
It is a planning board article. It is not a
Absolutely.
citizen petition article. It's a planning board article.
Last year it was a citizen.
Petition,
Last year was a
yes.
citizen petition article, and that's
They
when
didn't
the
have
comments were made that the
The
planning
ability
board
to write this.
Didn't have the time.
didn't have the time to
Yeah.
do their due diligence, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I feel like the king and I,
I'm
except
gonna take I will draft something.
showing my age.
No, that was just at the Opera House last year.
Was it okay?
You're good.
Starring Yul Brynner's grandson.
I was gonna say, I watched the original Yul Brynner and Deborah Kerr.
Now you're showing your age.
Black and
Who's,
white.
no.
So, I will draft a letter or a statement and for everyone's review. And I'm suggesting that perhaps we have a meeting on the 23rd, which is 2 weeks from today.
Yep.
To discuss that, to kick it around a little bit, talk about the strategy. I'll be doing some due diligence in the background as well. But is anyone in disagreement about a meeting? Won't be a long meeting, I don't think. Well, then again,
Okay, but hold on, we discussed the idea of the 23rd, when we would review the CIP again with any follow-up questions.
do we have follow-up questions for CIP? We've done a pretty good job, I
Do
think.
we or do you?
No, I'm just, I looked at you, Ray, but I didn't really mean that. I
I
don't.
don't think I do.
No, if Andrew suggested perhaps he might want to take a poke at it again, and he's more than willing to come and take a poke at it.
But you're gonna let him know how happy you were with our responses.
I
so
don't
there's
think
no need to poke.
he could never have done any better, Ray, you and Lynn, the best.
Okay, good. What about the school budget? By then, we're gonna,
By then, we will have information.
so do we want Dr. Price here? I'm sorry, when else are we gonna get that in? Yeah, it's there too, but no, look here, no, it's really hard to see. And I don't know how to zoom it because I'm,
Friday the 23rd.
Tuesday, the 23rd of, it's a,
Be nice if I got in the right month.
I'm like,
I keep doing that. Yeah, sure. Happy hour at Rolf's with the LCD projectors.
Okay.
So let's,
Year.
do you think we can get through the school committee, the school budget, I think, on the 23rd, even though it won't be voted on by the school committee?
I know
until
you're
the
looking
30th.
at me because I'm the one with the questions, but here's the question. It's about sequencing. It's almost not a question for Dr. Price as much as it is the town. Sequence of projects and timing.
That sounds political to me.
You're going back to CIP?
Well, you're right. It'll be a mix of budget and CIP. So she's here. We're gonna have to stick just with the budget.
You can ask questions. The budget includes things that impact the school. You can ask questions. I think.
The question is, can we keep that to an hour and then go into this finalizing our statement?
I don't think there's much, candidly, I don't think there's much to cover in the school budget. I encourage everyone to look at it. But when you get down to it, it's like, that's it. There's
Well,
nothing
there's
more.
nothing there.
There's nothing
There's
there.
no money there. I'm sorry. There's no money for the,
The
teachers.
changes are,
Nothing there but Jen's passion.
the changes are
Oh.
ECC, the changes are salary increases, and everything else is flatline year over year. I mean,
I'm saying it's
that's a
beyond
simple.
her
I'm not discouraging anyone
purview.
to pull it apart, and you're more than welcome to. Sasha, you got a look on you.
Me? Just like, that's my thinking face, sorry. All right.
the question is, do we even have her come? Is that the question?
Oh, we absolutely do need Dr.
Okay,
Price to come,
Okay.
absolutely.
So yes, then it'll be a short discussion.
This is the 23rd.
Yeah.
Plus, we're going, do we have time to do all that?
Well, we've spent 2 hours on, 2.5 hours, and some odd time with these topics, so I think so.
We're gonna review the well, you'll send the
I'll
letter in
send it out in advance. You know
so we
me.
can, all right.
Yeah.
Do we have to be careful of town meeting rules if we're all commenting on that, even over email? Isn't there a rule that we can't, open meeting says we can't?
On a
Draft.
Tim can send out an email to all of you as a group. You must individually respond to Tim. You
Yeah,
cannot
don't
gr-
hit
You
reply
cannot
all.
reply to all because that
Exactly.
is
That's-
considered
that's a
deliberation,
meeting.
that is
Yeah.
considered deliberation
On
and thus a
anything,
violation.
Thanks, Ray.
On the wording.
Well, again,
On
if
the
you're,
yeah.
if you're looking at something
Pertaining to like a
of this,
calendar.
you know, if you're just looking to set a date or when are you all available for a meeting, that's different.
Right, but if you're discussing
But
a-
because you're discussing an issue and a topic that you will collectively agree and vote on at some point in time,
that's
you know,
subject to
he
open
can send out
town
the
meeting.
draft, Sasha can reply just to him, Liz can reply
I'll-
just to him,
I'll
but
make-
don't hit reply to all.
I'll make
Yeah.
sure in my email cover that I say, reply to me only.
Yeah.
Or you
Yeah.
can just do
Not
a B,
reply.
Do what?
BCC, then nobody can reply all.
There you go.
So tech savvy.
Yeah, I'd just start worrying about her.
I'm in BCC world of ignoring.
Sneaking around.
Any other discussion on the last topics? Because we do have the approval of the minutes. Anyone want to take a
Thank you
gander?
very much for having us.
Thank you
Great.
guys.
Lynn,
both.
thank you very much. It was good.
It did get cold the last 45 minutes.
They keep us be on a timer.
I think it is, yes.
Cold,
Because
not
we-
zero. Wait,
Because
no,
when we used to
wait.
have our meetings in here too, it's time to go off at a certain hour and
Time
it
to
did.
go home.
Yeah.
Jeez.
When the heat goes off.
Have a good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Yep, good night.
Thank you.
So if you recall, the last meeting was with Andrew, and it had to do with economic development and the 5-year forecast.
can
Do I hear a
make
motion? Yep.
I make a motion to approve the minutes from the December 5th, 2017 Finance Committee meeting.
All in favor?
Aye.
I don't think we have any new business, but I'll entertain that. Okay. And then, oh, Chuck?
I have just a comment. I talked to, my personal business office is in Andover, and in my pro-business North Andover stance, I'm considering moving it to North Andover. And one of the places, I'm looking at offices all over town, and one of the places I'm looking at is Osgood Landing. So I asked about, should I even contemplate that, or is it with the conflict of interest? Is there something going on? And I was told I should just let you guys aware that I'm looking at office space over there. I haven't yet. I haven't talked to anybody about it. I don't even know who to call.
Okay.
But
I appreciate that.
that's a disclosure.
You may just also just want to send a quick email to our town council, just to CYA
Okay.
completely,
Yeah.
just to get
Yeah.
that thing in writing. She unplugged it.
Oh, that's okay.
Sorry.
It's okay.
All the rest of them should be on your.
So we are planning a meeting
Okay,
on
that's okay.
January 23rd, same time, probably same place?
Hopefully, I'm gonna call Michelle, because she's the one that books them.
Okay.
But I'll get back to you probably tomorrow or.
And the only two topics we have is the school budget and the statement that I'll have drafted and sent out to you ahead of time.
Do we have any action on these audit
You can read
items?
them.
They're just here.
I'm gonna bring mine
Yeah.
in because I didn't.
May I
Yeah.
suggest everyone read them? And
Yeah.
then if you want to send me notes or comments or questions regarding them, we'd be glad to entertain them. You could have Lynn come back and Andrew and to address them.
Perfect.
Is there any way you could send an email to just the Board of Selectmen and just thank them for their continued help with the town, or however you would say it? I mean, that was a marathon meeting last night, and they have gone through a lot. I just, yeah.
Well, we just make a public statement,
I
So was it really-
appreciate they get paid.
paid advertising.
10:55 PM. It started at 7. I mean, it was.
Motion to adjourn?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Second.
Chuck seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Good meeting.
Sorry.